a humble waitress, was mocked by Victor and Lila, two wealthy customers at the restaurant. They ridiculed her and challenged her to play the piano for their entertainment. Despite the insult, Emma did something that completely changed everyone's perception of her, especially Victor and Lila, making them begrudgingly acknowledge her talent and strength.
On a chilly Friday evening, the warm golden lights of the upscale restaurant in the heart of New York glowed brightly, casting a soft glow on the grand piano placed in the corner of the room, where the gentle strains of music created an atmosphere of elegance and romance. Emma, a 24-year-old with a humble and modest appearance, moved swiftly between tables, serving customers in her neat uniform. Despite the demanding job, she never gave up on her passion for music. The piano in the corner was always a place of comfort for her, even though she rarely had the chance to play. Tonight, everything was about to change when Victor, a wealthy CEO, walked into the restaurant with an air of arrogance, drawing all eyes toward him. Along with his beautiful girlfriend Leela, they quickly stirred up the tension and drew the attention of everyone in the room. Victor walked into the restaurant with a swagger that immediately commanded attention. The luxurious decor and soft music from the piano corner seemed to fade into the background as his presence took over. Dressed in an expensive suit, he exuded an air of arrogance, as though the entire world revolved around him. Beside him was Lila, his girlfriend, who mirrored his haughty demeanor. Together they created an atmosphere of superiority that was almost tangible. The moment they entered, it was clear that they were here to assert their dominance, not just enjoy a meal. As they settled into their seats, Victor wasted no time in establishing his place in the room. His voice was loud and condescending as he barked orders at the waitstaff, treating them like they were beneath him. He wasn't just dining, he was putting on a show for everyone in the room. Lila, not wanting to be left out, joined in the theatrics. She made sarcastic comments about the other diners, laughed too loudly, and displayed the same disregard for those around her. The energy shifted, and the once peaceful ambiance of the restaurant became charged with tension. Emma, a 24-year-old waitress, was no stranger to difficult customers. She had worked at the restaurant for several years, balancing her quiet demeanor with the demanding nature of her job. She moved between tables, refilling drinks and clearing plates, always with a polite smile. She had learned early on to tune out the rude comments and condescending glances, focusing instead on her work. But when she approached Victor's table, she couldn't escape his sharp eyes. He looked at her name tag, then made a show of examining her as if she were a specimen on display. "Emma, right?" Victor asked, his voice oozing with mockery. "You must have some hidden talent, right? Because if not, why would someone like you be working here?" His tone was dripping with disdain, his words cutting deep. Emma felt her cheeks flush, but she didn't let her discomfort show. She smiled politely and quickly moved on to serve the next table, though the sting of his comment lingered. Lila, noticing Victor's remark, smirked and added, "If you're so talented, why don't you prove it?" She gestured toward the grand piano in the corner. "Go ahead and play something for us. Let's see what you've really got." Her words were laced with sarcasm, and the challenge was clear. The two of them were using her passion as a way to entertain themselves, treating Emma like a joke. Emma stood still for a moment, the weight of their ridicule settling in. She had faced criticism before, but this was different. The harshness in their voices, the way they looked at her, made her feel small, but instead of shrinking, something inside her stirred. She knew she was more than what they saw. She wasn't just a waitress. She was an artist, and she would prove it, right here, right now. Without a word, Emma turned toward the piano. Her heart pounded, but her resolve was unwavering. Tonight, she would let the music speak for itself. The challenge from Victor and Lila left Emma feeling both confused and anxious. Their mocking words were like a slap to her self-esteem. "You probably just play piano for fun, right?" Lila said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, making Emma feel as if she were being belittled. Both Victor and Lila looked at her with sneers, treating her like a joke, something to entertain them for the night. Despite feeling embarrassed and insecure, Emma refused to back down. She had become accustomed to being looked down upon by others, and this time was no different. The atmosphere in the restaurant grew tense, as if everything was waiting for her to respond to the challenge. Every eye of the diners was fixed on Emma, and she could hear whispers from the surrounding tables, wondering if she would face the situation or shrink away. The murmurs felt like punches to her confidence, but Emma didn't falter. Even though the gazes made her feel cornered, she decided not to let their mockery dim her dreams. She took a deep breath, calming herself, and walked toward the piano. Every step she took was like Victor and Lila, who had once mocked and belittled her, couldn't help but be drawn in. What started as derision in their eyes slowly transformed into astonishment and eventually admiration. They could no longer see Emma as just a waitress. Instead, they were witnessing a true artist, someone with the talent that they could no longer ignore. The quick judgments they had passed earlier seemed insignificant now, overshadowed by the emotional power of her performance. With every note Emma played, it became clear that she deserved respect. No one could judge her based on her job or appearance anymore. In that moment, music wasn't just an expression of talent, it was a statement of self-worth, of inner strength and belief in herself. The entire restaurant was silent, captivated by her music, and in that instant, Emma stood as the brightest star in the room. As the first notes from the piano echoed through the room, Victor couldn't believe that the waitress he had so casually dismissed could play the piano so brilliantly. At first, he saw Emma as just another server, unworthy of attention, and all he thought was that she had nothing remarkable about her. But as she began to play, he could feel a distinct difference. Every note rang out with emotion and precision, her fingers moving swiftly yet gently, full of feeling. Victor began to feel a wave of shame rise within him, as if he had just realized how wrong he had been about her. He couldn't understand how this waitress could have such extraordinary musical talent. His earlier arrogance and disregard for her suddenly felt insignificant in comparison to her brilliance. The smugness he once carried evaporated, replaced by astonishment, even regret, for not recognizing her true talent sooner. Lila, Victor's girlfriend, who had also mocked Emma, found herself unable to keep up her earlier composure. She had mocked Emma, challenging her to play the piano merely for their amusement. But now, as the beautiful and emotional melodies filled the air, Lila felt small and humiliated. Her earlier snide remarks, her dismissive glances, now felt hollow. Emma's resilience and talent completely silenced Lila's mockery. Lila no longer felt superior. Instead, she felt an overwhelming sense of respect. She couldn't bring herself to look Emma in the eye as she continued playing. What she had once thought of as weakness now appeared as strength and determination, something Lila couldn't ignore. In that moment, Lila realized that it wasn't Emma who was beneath her, but rather her own arrogant judgment. Their mocking was completely shattered. No longer were there derisive looks or sarcastic words. Instead, there was a profound silence, filled with admiration. Both Victor and Lila could no longer deny the greatness in Emma's performance. Each note, each touch of the piano keys was a statement of her undeniable talent and unshakable resolve. The atmosphere in the restaurant shifted completely. What had once been filled with arrogance and superiority was now charged with respect and awe. The diners no longer viewed Emma with skepticism or disdain, but as a true artist, someone with a gift that could not be ignored. Victor and Lila, who had once mocked her, could do nothing but sit in silence, taking in the transformation in their own perception. All their arrogance had been pushed aside, replaced by genuine respect for Emma, the waitress they had once underestimated. As the final notes of the piece played, the atmosphere in the restaurant came to a halt. Everyone was silent, as if they were savoring the last remnants of the melody still lingering in the air. The entire room seemed to pause for a moment, as if everything stopped to acknowledge the greatness of Emma's performance. Then, as the sound of the piano faded, an abrupt change occurred. Thunderous applause suddenly erupted, filling the room with admiration and respect from the diners. It wasn't just applause for an outstanding performance. It was applause for the resilience, strength, and determination of a young woman who dared to stand up to the challenge. Victor sat there, completely stunned, unable to believe what had just happened. He couldn't lift his head as a wave of shame washed over him. The feeling of embarrassment overwhelmed him as he realized how wrong he had been to underestimate Emma. He couldn't fathom how someone like her could make him face this truth. Throughout the evening he had mocked her, looked down on her, but now all he could do was sit silently, unable to speak a word. Leela, though still attempting to maintain her haughty demeanor, couldn't hide the discomfort in her eyes. She looked at her hands, then up at the room, trying to avoid Emma's gaze. A sense of regret washed over her, as if she had just realized how wrong she had been about this girl. She couldn't deny Emma's greatness, and the mockery she had once aimed at Emma now felt hollow and shameful. Both Lila and Victor stood up, but no words escaped their mouths. They seemed stripped of their power in that moment, unable to say anything, just silently bowing their heads in acknowledgement of their mistake. Emma gently bowed her head, not paying attention to the discomfort. She didn't need to say anything. Her performance had already spoken for itself. She knew that she hadn't just won the battle of skill, but had triumphed in the fight to maintain her dignity and resilience. She didn't need their recognition or praise because in her heart she had proven what mattered most. She was a true artist, and no one could make her feel small. As she turned and walked away, the applause continued to echo in the room, and Emma knew she had left an indelible mark on the hearts of everyone who had witnessed this special moment. Emma returned to her duties, but this time she was no longer just a waitress. She had become a true artist in the eyes of everyone in the restaurant. She didn't need compliments or recognition from anyone, but the pride and certainty in her heart helped her rise above all challenges. She knew she didn't need to prove anything further because her performance had already spoken for itself. The diner's gazes were now filled with admiration, and no one could deny her talent. Emma didn't need acknowledgement from those who had once looked down on her, because she had won in the battle of maintaining her self-respect and affirming her worth. She had proven that true talent can never be denied. Emma's story sends a powerful message about the strength of resilience and true talent. Sometimes people may underestimate, mock, or look down on us, but the most important thing is that we should never give up on our dreams or our belief in ourselves. Talent isn't always recognized right away, but if we persist and stay strong, there will come a time when people have no choice but to acknowledge and respect us. Emma proved that even in difficult circumstances or when underestimated, if we maintain our self-respect and never give up, we will triumph. Always remember that a person's true worth cannot be judged by their appearance or job, but by their talent, determination, and resilience.